welcome everyone to the workshop. I can see that we have once again a diverse group of people, but a lot of you are actually potentially career changers or are studying and looking forward to to starting your career in computer sciences. So I think it might be actually quite useful for me to pass on the word to Hannah to talk a little bit about Solita, who is one of our partners and is actually looking for some people who can, build low code. So Hannah, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know how many of you already know Solita, but Solita is a technology company based in Finland and a few other countries. And like Sezen said, we are looking for example, OutSystems developers right now. And I want to encourage also some junior level people to come to work with us, because OutSystems is quite new in Finland. We don't have that many developers already, so we already have in our Solitas team also junior positions. So we are hoping that after these workshops and when you take this 14 days challenge and OutSystems certification and have some online training, you will be good person to work with our team. So I hope you will join Solita one day. And here are some information about our people. So Mirka Saarinen, she is our recruiter, and as said, Jasmo is our head of low code. So if you have anything you would like to ask about our low code opportunities, feel free to contact Mirka or Jasmo, and I can of course help you too. So hopefully you have a lot of new learning today, and someone of you will join Solita one day too.
Cool, thank you. Then now I'm going to ask the big question to you all. We've sent you an email with the instructions to get a personal environment and a development studio installed. And these things sometimes go wrong because, there can be technical complications that make it difficult. So my question to you is there anyone who had difficulties installing the environment or the development environment or to create one on the website that they can log in?
This is Laura. I contacted earlier and I think this virtual desktop is working. I'm now connecting to some environment here, and because I couldn't download it and I couldn't get my service desk from our work. So I think it's working now, but I'll let you know how it goes.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, by the way, for emailing us in advance. That way we can actually set up an environment for you to run it on. So that's also nice. If anyone else has any problems or you realize during my presentation that you might have problems, Marlene is here also to help you out with that.
I'm currently already chatting with Jenny, sorry. Sezen, if we do screen sharing, maybe it's better after your presentation, right?
To troubleshoot those types of things with screen sharing, I think it would be nice to first do the presentation. All right, so that is basically the big question. Then let's get into the easy ones. Why are we here? On Earth and in the universe I can't answer, but today in this workshop it is to learn a little bit about low code and about OutSystems. And specifically about low code, it's interesting to know that we are deriving sort of our mission, our raison d'être, from the fact that we see more and more gap sort of happening between the amount of IT vacancies that are available, where we're basically looking, for instance, for developers, and the amount of people who are able to actually do the work that is required, who have the skills to meet that demand. And as you can see here, this is a graph that my colleague Henry, who is actually Finnish, was kind enough to get in. You see that even in Finland, it is already a very big problem. So worldwide, it's even more of a situation that we have going on. So what we do as OutSystems to try to fix that problem is multiple things. The first one is we try to make it easier for people to actually develop applications fast and with a good communication effort between business and IT. And that way we can reduce the amount of developers that are required to complete a specific project. But even so, we still need people who are actually developers on OutSystems to be able to complete that. And because there's developer shortages everywhere, they also exist in the OutSystems developer market. So one of the things that we also do is we have an education program. And this education program is trying to basically fix the gap between the amount of the OutSystems developers that are required and the amount of OutSystems developers that we have. And as you can see, we have a lot of different students as part of that program, and we do it across a lot of different organizations with like different universities, etc. involved, and with in many different countries. One of the things that we've noticed as we are doing that is that we manage to much more easily reach male students who want to learn to do low coding than we have reaching people from a diverse background. So we are seeing less women sort of trying to become OutSystems developers. We see less people with a different skin color joining these programs. We see less people from a transgender background doing that. Which is a shame, because you see that basically companies that have a much more diverse organization have a much better time being innovative or creating technologies that are suitable for people to work with. So this is one of the things that we're trying to actively address with our education program as well, trying to get more people involved from different backgrounds than sort of the standard default developer norm. Not necessarily because we think that women will be better programmers than men, but because we think that it is useful to get all people involved in developing innovative technologies. Also to make sure that it matches much better with the needs of the consumer, who are also 50% female, right? So it makes sense, is basically what I'm saying. This is our chief of our CEO, the man who came up with OutSystems with some of his friends, and also who is still leading us about 20 years later. And his name is Paulo Rosado. He has been really putting effort on creating a more diverse, inclusive, and vibrant developer community, trying to make sure that we can meet the demand for developers in a way that represents the society. So, having put the small diversity part beside, let's talk about low-code. Low-code, what is it? Well, in the end, it's all about creating applications. And as you can see, we have different ways of doing that. On the left-hand side, we have something that OutSystems calls high code, and most people in the low-code world call it high code, and most other people just call it code. It's .NET, programming.NET, it's programming Java, it's programming SQL. So written syntax code. It is something that allows you to create very customized, specific applications that perfectly meet your needs. It also takes a lot of time. It's a pretty manual way of creating applications. Then on the right hand side, we have something called no-code. No-code is basically just reusing existing components and configuring them in new ways. So rather than writing any code or adding any specific implementations, you're just customizing systems utilizing pre-built components. This is very fast. It also means that you are often not as able to get to a very specific custom end results as you are with high code. So what we try to do with low code is the best of both worlds. We try to help for the 80% of the applications that that are sort of standard functionality. We try to help you to build it fast using visual components that are easily dragged and dropped into place. Now, for the remaining 20%, that might need a more specific touch. So, for instance, you want to make it look in a very specific way, or you want a new functionality that's not in a low-code platform yet, and you want to add it into it. We want you to be able to add high code for that. So you are still able to write programming languages like .NET, SQL, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS in OutSystems. You are able to add that code into OutSystems as well. And that's why I said in the introduction round that some of you already have skills that can also be useful within building in OutSystems. But you don't need them to build applications. And I think that that's kind of cool. This mix of both the convenience and the standardization on the one hand, and the specificity of handwritten, handcrafted code on the other hand. So what it all comes down to is basically this. We see in other industries that people have gone from manual labor, where they do repetitive tasks on a manual basis over and over again, to a highly standardized automated approach, where all of the routine tasks are being executed by automated machines, and only the specific tasks and the sort of decomposing of the functionality is done by human beings. And we think that you can do this in OutSystems as well. So where we are writing hand code on the left-hand side, which takes a lot of time but is very, craftsman-like, we can also choose to compose applications utilizing a lot of standardized code on the right-hand side. That's what the visual components of OutSystems do. So basically what is low code? It's all about applying the concept of automation to software delivery. So we try to automate everything where it makes sense. And anything where it doesn't make sense, we still allow you to add your own craftsmanship onto it. Well, you might wonder, when we had the introduction before, a couple of people said, well, I think that low code is the future. And I also think that. And the reason why I think that is because we see more and more people adopting low code. More and more of the standardized technologies, the employee applications, the even core processes of organizations are getting built on low-code applications. That's something that I see a lot in my world. But also Gartner wrote a report saying this is what we see happening. So they predicted that in 2024, 65% of application development activity will be on low-code. And I think they're pretty close. We're getting nearer to that year, and I do think that we might be able to reach that number by 2024. So there's a lot of things happening in OutSystems, and that means that there's also a lot of careers that are being developed on OutSystems or around OutSystems. So what kind of people do you need to build a low-code application in OutSystems? Well, we need developers. So those are that's what we're going to do today. Today we will all become a small bit of a low-code developer. But we also need tech leads, so people who have very much in-depth technical knowledge about OutSystems and are able to guide people fixing difficult problems. But we also need DevOps experts, right? People who are able to not only create the applications, but also bring them into production in a comfortable way. We need architects who basically make sure that we build our application platforms in such a way that we can keep changing it, that's maintainable, that we are ready not just for the next sprint, but for the sprint that we can still be as fast in 40 sprints from now. And we have a lot of different roles as well. So we have people who are testers, both the more acceptance test type of roles and the very much in-depth technical testers. We see that there's a lot of UX UI with low-code platforms in general, because we are building a lot of screens, because it's so easy. But we also see that there's product owners, of course, because there's no way to produce any form of application without someone making the tough call, saying which functionality should be in and which functionality should be out. So then the question is OutSystems something that would be interesting for you to spend some time in? And honestly, the answer to that I cannot give you. That's something that you will have to discover for yourself as we're building later on. But in general, we see that the people who enjoy working with OutSystems, enjoy building on low code, are people who are looking for a new challenge, trying to add a new tool into their toolbox, who are trying to be more productive with the time that they're spending coding, so building more functionality in the same time, or people who just don't like the technology that they're working on right now. And that's probably not the case for most of you, but there are some people that I talk to who are building on very old technology stacks and who prefer to move to a different type of technology that allows them to do cooler things, basically. And so basically what's in it for you to learn this skill? It's something that's in demand. It's fun. You can build cool things fast. And that's generally for me the thing that sort of makes me happy about OutSystems. I enjoy building applications. I enjoy seeing the results of my work. And that's what motivates me. So if you do want to do that, is there a possibility for you to do so in Finland? Well, once again, my Finnish colleague did look up some examples of Finnish opportunities where you might become an OutSystems developer. And we see, of course, a lot of opportunities at Solita. We already heard them talk about it, but there's also other companies in Finland looking for people who can join their low-code team. And you see that they're also looking for people on different levels. So anyone from like the trainee level to like senior developers and tech leads. So there's a pretty good career path to be had with low-code within Finland and also beyond Finland, because I can tell you that there's also a lot of opportunities in the Netherlands. So what is the 14-day challenge that will happen after today's session? We first will get you started right now to get to know OutSystems, see it as a first date basically. And if you are willing to commit and explore the relationship a little further, then we can have a 14 days challenge together. In which time you will be spending a lot more time with the platform, the tools, getting to know the ins and outs. And after you've finished completing the guided path that we provide you, then you can let us know and we will give you the opportunity to test yourself and take the OutSystems certification exam. It's the reactive web exam that you will be doing. And that one is actually one of the most in-demand certifications for junior developers in OutSystems. So if you have that certification, that really gives you a good starting point from which to develop an OutSystems career if you're interested in doing that. So that's enough about this whole path and everything around it. Let's talk about OutSystems. OutSystems is a modern application platform. What we aim to do is to help you build it fast, build it right, and build it for the future. So we want to help you build applications at a high speed. We want to help you to have a good quality of coding inside those applications. We want you to be able to stick to the best practices, to have a good architecture in there. And we want you to be able to keep on changing those applications by building it for the future. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that in a second, but first I just remembered that I need to sometimes provide some space for people to ask questions. So I'm going to pause for a bit and ask, is there anyone who has a question on what I've been telling you so far? All right, I think that there's no one who has a question on everything that we've discussed so far. But if you do, please feel free to raise your hand, put it in your chat, or even interrupt me. I really don't mind. Okay, so we've just discussed OutSystems' mission, building it fast with high quality and with an ability to change. Let's talk a little bit about the company. We're a worldwide company. We're in like 87 countries. A lot of different industries use us because we're not an industry-specific tool. So right now we see that 22 different industries utilize us. We have a lot of different partners, Solita being one of them, with different skill sets and different sort of industries as well that they focus on. And there's a lot of people in our community, which is actually very good for anyone trying to learn OutSystems, because that means that you have a lot of people who are willing to help you when you have questions and things like that. And at the end, we'll point you towards some places where you can meet the rest of the OutSystems community if you're interested. I see that there is actually a question in the chat. The question is, which language is OutSystems using? Like, is it near to Java or Python or JavaScript? That's an excellent question. So under OutSystems, we have a lot of different languages. We are built on top of .NET. So our basic language is C#. That's the server-based language, basically. And then on top of that, we are running a lot of different things that you are used to seeing in web environments. So we have SQL to get information out of the database and put it back in. We have JavaScript and CSS and HTML for the general page structures and to make all of that work. And by the way, the JavaScript flavor we're using is called React. So that's a specific type of libraries that we're using. And yeah, that's about it. So that's the languages that OutSystems is using underwater. And all of the things that I just mentioned, you are also able to build components from and add to the platform if you'd like. All right, so let's get back to the presentation. There's a lot of companies that use OutSystems. Let's not go too much into depth on that in and of itself, but these are just some of the logos to show that this is something that a lot of different companies and organizations do use. And the reason why so many different companies use it is, among other things, that OutSystems is consistently one of the leaders in the different analyst reports. So there's a lot of IT analyst reports out there from Gartner and Forrester, in which you can see that OutSystems is always in the leaders quadrant. There's two different types of reports that you can focus on. You have the low-code application platform reports, and then you also have the multi-experience or mobile development reports, which are two different reports, but they tend to have always OutSystems in the leader quadrants or leader corners or whatever the structure specifically is of that report. So that's just to show that there's a lot of organizations looking into it. Honestly, I don't really care so much about the business analyst, if I'm honest. What I care much more about is what our actual customers think and how they talk about us. So what we have here is a a count of the different reviews that people have on public sites about the different technologies. And as you can see, OutSystems has a very vibrant community where a lot of people actually take the effort to go somewhere and review the platform and talk about it. And the reason why that is because we have a pretty pretty large developer base who are utilizing it in their daily efforts and who, you know, are very much involved in the way that we develop our product further as well. So that's what other people say about OutSystems. Let's talk about what is actually in the platform. Our mission is to give every organization the power to innovate quickly and also easily in a maintainable manner. We do this by helping you build it fast using our development environment, and the components that we've built for you already have a lot of quality control in them so that you can compose high quality applications at high speed. We also have the ability to assist you in changing applications by actually showing you the impact of a change that a change is going to have on your system. So both within the application that you're building, and if other applications use logic or something that you've built, then you can also see the impact of that change in other applications. I'm going to once again ask if there's any questions, please put them into the chat or tell me. That's also fine. There's enough space for us to have some discussions if we'd like. So if we look at the OutSystems application platform, what you can see is that there's sort of three parts of it. We have the runtime, and the runtime can be it can be installed on your cloud, it can be installed on your environment. Then we have a extremely powerful platform underneath that's doing a lot of AI capabilities to make it easier for you to, for instance, build and optimize stuff. And then on top of that, we have the ability to actually develop fast, utilizing the tools that we have underneath. Basically what we're doing is we're replacing a very complex IT landscape with one simplified and easy to use platform so that we all know what the other people are doing. So what do people build with it? Sometimes they build internal applications that streamline inefficient processes. Anything where you're still using forms can be basically replaced with low code quite easily. But we also see a lot of digital experiences. So we see applications that are meant to entertain or inform customers or internal employees in a nice and comfortable way being built on OutSystems. And the final thing that we see is a lot of core applications. So anything where we're building ERP systems or extending them or otherwise touching sort of the heart of organizations often also get done on OutSystems just to make it a little bit more flexible, where the typical core system can be quite slow to change. So adding a flexible layer on it, for instance, can really help organizations to stay up to speed. Within the platform, we have the following things. We have a full stack development kit, and you're going to get to know that one intimately today, because that's where we're developing. It basically allows you to build applications using visual components, including integrations and extensions to different platforms. So in the integration area, we have things like REST and SOAP and Open API standards to help you integrate your application with other systems or applications. And we also have the ability to add code onto it to make it do more, but that one we already covered. And then beyond just the development environment and the integration capabilities, of course, you also want to be able to bring the application into production And that is also fully covered by OutSystems, so we have a full lifecycle built into the application, full lifecycle management into our platform. That allows us to bring applications from development to production in a very easy way. Now, all of these things are very nice, of course, but the whole reason why we have it is so that we can build experiences for users, but also for systems. So the type of interfaces that you can build with OutSystems are web interfaces, so you can build web applications and mobile applications. And you also can expose the information in your system to other systems. So other applications can also talk to OutSystems applications using APIs, which is what we basically also use here in the integration capabilities. And then finally, if you want to send chat messages or emails or whatever as a response to things that happen in your system, that is also always possible. Oh, look at that. We have had like some view on how that development is going to work. All right, then we have the differentiation through holistic innovation. Basically, we see that there's different types of people who want to build applications or who need to be involved in the applications, and they can range from a subject matter expert to completely technical expert. And they have different needs, but they need to be able to work together into one environment. So what we have done here is just to make a quick overview of some of those options in OutSystems. Completely on the right hand side, if you're very technically proficient, you can see that you can build your C# code using Visual Studio and exposing it to OutSystems. So that's just writing perfect syntax here and getting it into the platform. On the whole other end of the spectrum, we have the subject matter experts. They don't tend to write so much code. So what they do instead is model applications using our builder. So for instance, in the workflow builder, you can set up forms and workflows that deal with the information in those forms without any difficulty. It's just a wizard that helps you configure the application. And then once you've generated it, it actually gets published into OutSystems, and you can take it over in Service Studio and adapt it. And that's actually also the same for the Integration Studio. So both sides, the technical experts and the subject matter experts, produce things that can then be taken in the low-code environment of Service Studio to be extended upon or to be combined or to be utilized. And that's typically the job of the low-code developer. Today we will be working with that middle one, the Service Studio, where everything sort of comes together. But just be aware that these other things exist and allow you to either go more technical or more towards the subject matter expertise and work together. Now, as you are building in OutSystems today, you will see that you will sometimes get this red circle on top with a white cross on it. And you probably immediately intuitively think, okay, that means that there's probably something going wrong. What that is called true change, and true change helps you basically make sure that you're building things that are technically correct and also in line with the best practices. So all changes that you make, OutSystems evaluates and says, okay, that's all right, or no, you need to make sure that your performance is good, so this is something you should change, and things like that. And it gives you actively feedback on your programming in the bottom bar to help you build applications that are of high quality always. We also have a dashboard that you can use to keep overview over all of the things that everyone built and see how well they did in terms of best practices and architecture. And that's very useful if you have multiple people working together into one platform. Another thing to note is that we have a marketplace. So we have a place where you can find some components that are very useful for you to utilize and reuse and stuff like that. So there's useful components there, but there's also complete applications there that you might want to utilize. It's called the OutSystems Forge, and you will be using it in today's exercise as well. And with that, I've basically rounded out all of our slides, and I'll give you a very short demo about OutSystems Server Studio and how to use it shortly. And after that, we're going to do the exercises. But before we do any of that, let me just take a moment here and see if there's any questions. All right, I think we might be able to proceed. So let's build in OutSystems, or at least let's learn a little bit about how to build in OutSystems, because you're going to need this information soon. So if you went and, got a little bit disinterested or something, this is the moment to refocus, because we're going to build in OutSystems soon and you need to know this information. So this is the Server Studio. It's our low-code development environment. And as you can see here, we have the new application button, which we can click and then we can create a new application. So far, that's not very surprising. You can see here on the right-hand side, we have the ability to start from an application. And if we open that up, you'll see that we have actually a lot of sort of demonstration applications that you can utilize to start building your own applications on top of, or to even see how certain things are implemented. So if you're interested in just exploring something, you can open up one of those and see how that's done. But in this case, I'm going to not install that at all. I'm going to instead start from scratch, and that's what you also will be doing. Today we're going to be building a mobile application, so what you are going to select is the phone app. That's where we can build a mobile application. We also have reactive web as a flavor, and there's some other flavors that we have in terms of applications. But right now we're going to build a phone app. Then the first step in building our app is always to upload an icon. I think I've lost my, there we go. My pop-up was lost behind you all, sorry. But let's say that we are going to utilize this logo for the application. And as you can see immediately, we have a automatic selection of the color pink as the main theme color of this application. That means that we're going to be using a lot of pink in this application. If we would prefer not to, we could of course select a different color to utilize. And in this case, I'll call the application demo application. The goal of this demonstration is not going to be to build a complete application. It's just for me to show you your way around in the tool. So let me just do that. As we open up our application, you see that we open up on the development tab, which allows us to create a module. Now, modules, if you're building on the architecture, are very important. You can put things in modules in such a way that your system is much more agile and maintainable. But today we're going to do terrible development practices and just build everything into one module. So that's okay for today's exercise, but when you're becoming an actual OutSystems developer, please don't do that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a Excel sheet onto my main flow canvas. And that allows me to import some data out of the Excel sheets into my databases. I'm mostly doing this so that I can show you what our databases look like. So if we open up one of those Excel sheets, the database that was created based on it looks like this. I'll quickly publish so that we can see some data. But as you can see, it just has a name and then some attributes related to it. You're going to be doing this as well. You're going to drag and drop in your Excel sheet and build some data tables based on that. And what's kind of cool if you use that is that we'll also immediately get some demo data, because the Excel sheet that I just used to create this is actually put here into my resources tab. And when we publish, the logic to actually bootstrap that information in is also ran. So what it happens when I press on publish like I did right now is that this logic gets triggered. And basically what it does is it checks if there's any posts in the database. And if that's not the case, then it's going to grab from the resources the Excel file that I uploaded, and it's going to go over each row and create a database item into the database. So that's just something fun to be aware of how that works. But after I've triggered this logic, that means that there should be some data here created into my databases. Like here. And as you can see, it looks very much like it would if it was an Excel sheet as well, right? So we have here our user profile pic and it's a URL, and it's just in a column beneath that name. So that's what we have here in the data tab. And an important thing for you to know is that what we have here on the right hand side, so this menu, it's basically our navigation menu. So we're going to be switching to different views of our information based on this menu, and we're going to navigate to that information. But if we open up one of the items where we might need some tools, we also on the left hand side now have a toolbox, which allows us to add onto the logic. So if I wanted to, for instance, send an email based on this bootstrap, then I could add a send emails tab here from my toolbox, and I can build out the email as I want to send it. But I'm not going to send an email, so let me just remove that. Very nice hack. You can just do Ctrl-Z or utilize this arrow to undo anything that you didn't want to do. Okay, let's get to the logic tab. So the logic tab, I already showed you what some logic looks like, but next to this logic that we have here, which is a server action and is reusable across different applications, we also have integrations. And the integrations are ways for you to expose data or logic to other applications. So you can right click on one of those integrations, and then you can either expose what you have in your system to other systems, or get information or logic from other systems into yours. So this is how you're going to sort of interact with the rest of the world, basically. So that's what's in the logic tab. Now let's go and see if we can build a screen. So what I did is I switched to interface and I double clicked on main flow to get to this view. And what you can do now is just grab one of those items and drag and drop them here into the main flow screen. So I'm just grabbing my database table and I'm putting it onto the main flow. And what that will do is OutSystems will think, okay, Sezen wants to do something with this data on the screen. What would be the most likely interpretation? Probably that she wants to make a list of the data and a detail screen. So that's what OutSystems did. They made a list of all of the items that I have in my table and the ability to create new ones and edit the information that's in there. So this is what it looks like now, but I don't really like it, right? So it's weird to have here just the URL of the picture. I'd much rather show the picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the URL, and I'm also deleting these numbers, and I'm going to put in a picture instead. So as you remember, we have on the left hand side here the toolbar, toolbox, and what I need is an image. So just search for that and there we go, we have an image. So I'm dragging in my image into the screen and there we can add the image. But as you can see, I now have a red button with a white cross on it. This means that there's a technical issue. And the technical issue is that we don't actually tell OutSystems what image to display here. So what we're going to do instead of having a local image here is having an external URL, because that's what information we have in our database. And then I'm going to switch the URL to post picture, and there we go. We have now a picture of the post. I might want to change the way things look in OutSystems. So for instance, I might want to change the description that we have here and make it italic. If I do, I can click on the element and I can select styles here. And then I can just change the way that things look. So what did I say that I wanted to do? I wanted to make it italic. So now it's italic. I can also change, for instance, the color, or I can do a lot of different things really. So that's the styling property, and you will be using that also today. And then finally, a useful thing to know that we have is the widget tree. So if I switch here to the widget tree, I can actually see how all of the items are stacked together. And that allows me to much more precisely interact with them. So I might want to enclose all of my items into a container, and then using the style property, add a small bit of padding on top of each of them. Alright, so that is my post list, and I might now be happy enough with everything I've done to publish. So to publish, I click on the green button, and that is going to do some very important things. First, it's going to send the model that I've just built of my application to the platform server. The platform server receives that model and it's going to create the code that it needs to run the application, including some database scripts, because we created here some databases, right? So it's going to make those databases for us and it's going to make everything ready. Now to actually test it out, I'm going to click on the blue button and open it up in my environment. As you can see, we now have a small screen with some pictures there, and if I click on them, I can change the URL of the picture, and we can go back, or we can actually edit it, and we can save the changes that we've made. Now I might want to see this also on my phone, in which case I can either select enable PWA, that's progressive web app, and a progressive web app you can put on your phone without having to install anything, or I can generate a mobile application. So then you get an APK or an IPA, I think, for iOS, but you get an executable file on OutSystems. You can also get there, by the way, by going to your development environment and clicking on distribute. So that way you know your way around. So if I now distribute this as a PWA, we have here a QR code, and you can scan that with your QR code scanner, and by that you will have the application as a progressive web app on your mobile phone and be able to utilize it. So that was my demonstration of how to use Service Studio to build a mobile application. Let's go and actually build, I think.